Warhammer 40k Darktide is a first-person shooter hack-and-slash game developed by Fatshark, known for the successful Vermintide series, and they are back using their larger-than-life horde mechanics of Vermintide and bringing it to the 40k universe. Similar to other games such as Left 4 Dead and Back 4 Blood, here is everything we know about Warhammer 40,000 Darktide. Warhammer 40,000 Darktide will be available on November 30th, 2022, and the Steam page currently has this description. Take back the city of Tertium from hordes of bloodthirsty foes in this intense and brutal action shooter. Warhammer 40,000 Darktide is the new co-op focused experience from the award-winning team behind the Vermintide series. As Tertium falls, rejects will rise. The location, a planet named Tertium. Specifically, you will play in a hive city. If you don't know what a hive city is, a hive city, or simply a hive, is a massive arcology or fully self-contained city that is the home to millions or even billions of humans being loyal to the Imperium of Man. They are built up over thousands of years and consist of many layers, and with this comes gangs, cults, and other insidious works. We can expect an array of maps for missions to take place on. We know the maps will change over time. You may go to one place only to return to it, and something like a gas leak has happened which changes the environment slightly. We aren't sure how minor or major these changes will be. We do also know that returning to the maps may have different objectives, so unlike Vermintide where each map had a set objective, in Darktide these will change and things will change, which adds more variety and replayability. Objectives will change from being a button held down to activate or use something to mini-games to change up and add some more layers to their systems. The plot itself will see you as criminals, rejects, and general outcasts who have fallen into the service of the Inquisition, going through the Hive City facing off against the forces of chaos. Specifically, we'll be looking at the forces of Nurgle, with our dear Papa Nurgle looking to extend his picket fence. The story itself will evolve over time, similar to games such as Destiny 2, and also how Vermintide 2 extended its story content post its paid DLCs, and it started to look into the flavors of the different characters and adding story from there. When not partaking in missions, players will find themselves in a player hub. The hub itself will be an Inquisitor's starship with the opportunity to engage with various NPCs, change builds for your reject including their loadout, access shops to buy new weapons, and obviously will be the hub to select which mission you go on. It's been described as a larger hub than what was in Vermintide 2, where the developers have also said you'll be able to engage with other players, so this could mean that it's a little bit more like a public hub where you can chat and see players from outside your own party. I'm thinking hubs that appear in MMOs such as the stations in Star Wars The Old Republic. Darktide will have various difficulty levels, something already featured in their previous games of Vermintide. The developers have revealed that changing the difficulty will change two different factors. The first one is the amount of enemies encountered on a mission, so think even larger horde sizes, and then the second one is the damage being received, which is usually a given when you change difficulties. I'm guessing these will follow a similar path as the Vermintide, with having a recruit, normal, veteran, and then a harder champion mode, rather than customizing these two factors independently, although that would be quite a nice feature. With the setting out of the way, knowing we'll be on some grimdark futuristic levels with changing environments, which enemies are trying to disrupt and corrupt the Hive City? Well, it's none other than the father of pestilence, the grandfather himself. It's Papa Nurgle. Sending forth his loyal servants of decay and rot, Nurgle is a fantastic, much beloved, if not fanatic. Nurgle is well known in the Warhammer video games as being a main villain. With 4 main chaos gods along with Khorne, Nurgle is probably one of the highest represented in the video game sphere so far. We found out that hordes are going to be larger than what we have ever seen in Vermintide 2, which is absolutely crazy to think of. The amount of mobs that would charge your group was already at an insane level. Adding in, we know the different difficulties. This will increase further with even larger hordes. With the addition of guns, this increase will likely feel fair compared to Vermintide, as you know, guns typically trump a sword. The hordes themselves will mainly consist of Poxwalkers, which are the main demons of Nurgle. Although secretly, I do hope we get a surplus amount of Nurglings too, as these guys totally deserve and need to be in this entry, especially especially if Nurgle is our main foe. Other denizens and enemies that we've seen are some cultists, mortal units who pledge themselves to the Grandfather's teachings. A light infantry, expect these guys to spring crazy and be over the top. Chaos Hounds, we've seen the goodest of boys, well, the goodest to Nurgle anyway, not so much our protagonists. Deathwalkers and Ogryn, I don't even know if I pronounce Ogryn right. Is it Ogryn or Ogrian? Like, if someone knows, let me know in the comments below. But there will be a more plagued version of the Ogryn, being more skilled and heavier infantry. I imagine these will be similar to finding the armoured Chaos Warriors of Vermintide. They'll take a bit of a beating to go down, or the other elite Skaven that we saw in Vermintide 2. These are the enemies that we've seen or had confirmed. However, the forces of Nurgle are vast. We only need to look at the Games Workshop page and the range that is available just for the Nurgle faction to get ideas of other elites that could appear in Darktide. Other common mobs or possible bosses that we could be facing. Going from Fatshark's history, we will likely see an array of different special enemies and random elites and bosses that we will encounter. Hopefully we might also be able to see a grey uncleaned one. With a story that is being unveiled over time, we can only conclude that this range, especially on the elite and boss mobs, will hopefully increase as the story arc develops. As they add in more content, we'll hopefully have more foes, more bosses, more elites, and even some more common mobs that we'll be facing. So we've looked at where we will be playing and who we'll be playing against, but the exciting and the most important part is what do we know about who we will play as? While there's a good amount of information, there will be 4 classes available on release of Darktide, and we'll have a ton of customizable options that were shown to us at Gamescom 2022. This is a massive difference between Vermintide and Darktide, moving away from very set characters with a very set look and physical aesthetic. You will be able to customize your character, not completely, but there'll be enough customization compared to the Vermintide series. First, we have the Zealot, an accolade of the Inquisition, complete with a power hammer and scroll to act as their clothing, it seems, like the power of God and anime themselves are on your side. The Veteran, an Imperial Guard, I imagine this to be like your typical soldier type. Then we have an Ogryn ourselves, a monstrous brute with a massive slug gun and a Pirates of the Caribbean sword to slice away. And finally, we have the Psyker, the future of wizardry, a hooded figure who uses their mind as a weapon. We've also had confirmed that the voice acting and dialogue is back. Despite the visual customizations being brought in with Darktide, it will feature unique dialogue similar to its Warhammer Fantasy opposite, with dialogue that fits the mood or archetype of that character you choose to play as. They will have their preset personalities. Hopefully these will be just as well done, if not better than in Vermintide. As for me, the dialogue and the interactions between the characters was a huge bonus and boon to the game. The characters become memorable and even amieve, #SilenceCarillion. So whilst their backstory, their personality is something that's already laid down by Fatshark, we will still be able to customize the appearance of our character. We also know that all classes will have a shield system in Darktide, which will act the same for each of the characters, however it will be themed differently. We haven't been told what these are, but I imagine, as an example, the Psyker shield will be to do with their warp manipulation, whereas the Veteran will be some sort of physical shield based on their actual armor. I suspect these will be different to Vermintide, where you could basically just block so many times before you could take a hit. I imagine it'll be more like in Halo, where you have an active shield that recharges and it goes down when you get hit. Time will tell though on this one. Aesthetic changes aren't the only thing affecting your playstyle and your character. Fatsharks have changed their looting system. There will still be a randomized gear element and rewards for loot. However, Darktide will also include a shop where players can buy weapons, allowing some control on the items bought, and likely the stats that they come with. By this type of in-game shop, I do mean with in-game money, not a microtransaction system, but we'll talk about it. Being set in the 40k universe, we can obviously expect guns to be the main focus for combat in Darktide. We've already seen a fair few weapons that will be available. Snipers, shotguns, rifles will all be represented in Darktide, with variant and most likely different aesthetics. Some speculation here, but I hope Darktide will retain its tiers of weapons, with some legendaries available with absolutely awesome aesthetics to show off to your friends. Now, whilst range combat is taking a front seat, melee is still an important part of Darktide and is what made Vermintide feel so good. With enlarged horde sizes, your melee will still come in handy. We've seen a range of melee weapons already. We've seen hammers, knives, swords, and iconically chainswords. These weapons will likely feel the same as they did in Vermintide, and looking at the gameplay, they look like they feel amazing. The question really will be, how does the range combat feel? Vermintide's range was fairly limited in comparison to how Darktide will run. In the co-op horde defense style of games, there is plenty of competition from games such as Left 4 Dead and Back 4 Blood for range combat, but could Darktide rise above them all? Finally, there is one last thing to mention, and sadly, it is a bit of a bugbear. Although there is a shop that doesn't use a premium currency, it also appears that Darktide will actually have a premium currency with a cash shop to boot. The Imperial edition of the game gives the buyer 2,500 of the premium currency called Aquilus. I think that's right. I haven't seen anything from Fatshark detailing what will be available in this shop. My hope is that it's a purely cosmetic system, though my preference will always be for no microtransactions at all. So, what have I missed? I am absolutely hyped for Darktide. I was a big fan of the Vermintide games, so I'm looking forward to their next adventure. Are you excited about Darktide? Let me know in the comments below. Warhammer 40k Darktide will release on November the 30th this year, 2022. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe for more content from me. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll speak to you soon.